As the week went by, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, those stabbing pains that I was having in my stomach really intensified, and they got to the point where they were happening every 15 minutes. I could literally look at my watch and tell when they were coming. And I can't remember if it was 3 or 4, but I mean the spasms, I actually knew exactly how many I'd get. I knew exactly when they would happen.
He came back and he was still sick. Now he's told me, you know, I have blood on my stool. I started trying to give him IV fluids. It was so bad, he was in so much pain that I said, enough. And I remember giving him in my office, I think I gave him 6 liters of fluid in my office, and then I said, I give you pain medication, still not going away, the pain. You have blood on the stool. I call a specialist, and this time it was Dr. Patty.
I get this call from Dr. Serrano, my good friend, saying, Dr. Patty, that's how they all call me. I have this a weightlifter, bodybuilder, who has been having some problems with diarrhea and bleeding, but he seems to be not doing so well, and I'm not able to control his symptoms very well. Can you please see him quickly?
Sent him to the doctor that same day. Actually, the hospital, the ambulance came and picked him up, brought him to the emergency room. Dr. Patty met him, scoped him that same day. He had a flex sigmoidoscopy that day. And Dr. Patty called me and said, you know, his rectum is bleeding very severely.
And that's the first time I met John. And I was impressed at how well built and healthy he looked at that time. I said, what could a guy like this be doing in my office? But sure enough, when we scoped him, we saw a colitis that was involving part of his colon on the left side.
It was still rather confusing for me because I didn't have all of the colitis symptoms.
It was not a typical looking colitis that we normally see, and I was a little concerned about it, so I did some biopsies, and I started John on some medications to try and control the colitis medically.
So I asked him, you know, he's a bodybuilder, he's doing well, he has a good future. Can we try medication?
And I started John on some medications to try and control the colitis medically. It really didn't help him much. He kind of got a little better, got a little worse. He was pretty much essentially unchanged.
As the week continued, by the end of the week, the pain had gotten so severe, eventually I was forced to go to the emergency room.
You know, with this bleeding, ongoing bleeding, I admitted him to the hospital and tried to put him on intensive medical treatment by giving him some IV steroids, putting him on complete bowel rest and medications to try and control the colitis.
They gave me some painkillers. I don't remember what they were, but whatever they were, they didn't work. And the pain just continued to just pound away at my stomach. And at that point, I was very confident that it was, you know, something was wrong. I had no idea what was wrong, but something really bad was happening. I didn't know what it was, but that kind of stomach pain, to have everybody really not sure what it was really scary. A couple of days later, I was back in the emergency room again, and you know, there was some more CAT scans and some other tests that they performed. A number of different tests. The result, it just wasn't sure what was wrong still at that point. So another couple days go by, and at that point, I'm pretty much, I'm not eating, I'm just drinking enough water just to get me through the day, and pretty much thinking something here really soon is going to go. Either this is just going to go away or it's going to kill me, one or the other.
So it was very evident that this was not working. His bleeding increased to the point where now I was really concerned that I had to do something quickly surgically or that we were going to lose John.
And there was actually 3 times where that I lost blood. I had some of those spasms came and a lot of blood came out of me. And then 15 minutes later probably it happened, and then 15 minutes later again. And obviously, if that continues to happen, you're not going to have any blood left in your body. Single scariest point of my entire life. I stand up, I get out of bed, and basically the blood that came out of me, this I think was about the third time, could have been more, but it was coagulated in the shape of my intestine. So I look down and I see what looks like an intestine laying on the floor, and I can't even begin to tell you how scary that was. And I immediately felt myself going into shock and started shaking and sweating. And the voice, my speech started slurring, and I could feel myself getting lightheaded. At that point, I just said, you know what, I'm not going to make it. I gave my wife some notes to tell some people goodbye, and I thought at that point that, you know, I had just accepted I was going to die. I wanted to make sure I got last messages to the people that I care about.
At that time, Dr. Patty called me and said, you know, I'm going to take him to the OR. He started scoping. He was bleeding so bad that I said he needs to have emergency surgery. I asked Dr. Patty to please be conservative because, you know, he was still looking good even though he was going through all this, although he kept losing weight. And he weighed about 180 by that time. And we decided to do a small incision because I kept pressuring Dr. Patty to see if we can do it without a ileostomy or colostomy or a bag in front of his stomach. And he said, okay, I'm going to try. Well, during 2 hours after Dr. Patty started, he called me on the phone and said, Eric, I did as much as I can. I tried to stop every bleeding, but his bleeding is very severe. Actually, he had lost like 3 to 4 pints of blood, he told me. And then I said, well, Dr. Patty, how much you have to take off? And I said, well, I got to take enough. And I said, what's enough? Enough to stop his bleeding. But he said, you got 2 choices, Serrano. He told me that you were the one to choose. And I said, or he bleeds to death or I do it.
Had to remove all of his colon and part of his rectum in order to get control of the bleeding. And since this was done emergently on an unprepped bowel, we had to do an ileostomy, which was obviously temporary.
He called me back after 4.5 hours surgery, saying he went ahead and did ileostomy, and that's a bag in front of the stomach where all your stool, liquids, everything goes into after removing part of your colon. And he told me that was the only way we could do it. It was a large incision from the abdomen to all the way past the belly button down to his pelvis.
And I remember waking up in ICU, and I've got tubes all over me. You know, I had a tube in my left side to drain extra fluid or whatever out of my stomach. I had an ileostomy bag connected to my right side, which was very creepy. And I had learned, you know, Dr. Patty had told me that he had to remove my entire large intestine, and, you know, so they rest your small intestine and your rectum basically, and they pull your ileum up through your stomach. And so I had that new addition, and then of course I had you know, some other tubes in other places that weren't very fun either. So, but when I woke up, I remember I was really, really happy because I was alive. And for a minute I thought, man, am I really alive? And I was thrilled. And the nurses were all kind of like, wow, you know, we've never seen somebody so happy.
John was quite sick from all this and had to be in intensive care for I think a week or so.
Man, I can't believe I'm alive. I thought for sure I was dead. And, you know, and then when the doctors came in and said, you're going to be fine, there's going to be a period of recovery. I had 33 staples, I believe, from the top of my stomach all the way down. That was pretty painful, but they said I'd be okay and that life would go on, and so I felt pretty good.
It was incredible to see John on the hospital. I went to see him that same night and the next few days, and you can see a guy that was usually in my office, 270, 254 minimum, and now he was on the 180s. And actually he was, if I remember correctly, he was on the low 180s. Actually he went down to 172 if I remember correctly.
It was amazing when I went into the hospital for that surgery. I was still probably around 215 pounds, And then after I was released, after that first surgery, it was 10 days, I believe I was in there, I was under 180. So it doesn't take long when you are basically being spoon-fed little bits at a time. You know, the first day they might give you a little bit of ice. The second day they might give you a little bit of pureed food, and they kind of build up what they give you. But it was amazing to me that the weight could fall off of you that fast.
He pulled through because of his good health, and then he came out of it and slowly started getting better.